this is Riley Davison, and you are listening to Bravo Zulu Radio. And from my heart, I just want to say thank you for doing so. I'm very excited about tonight's program, and I know that you are too. I saw a post on Facebook that was very sincere, very honest, very open, and really sharing. And so I reached out and I said, I'd love to have you on the show. And the response from this beautiful lady was, why me? I'm nobody. And I said, wait a minute. So you're nobody that helps people change their lives. Isn't that right, Cindy Simmonds?
Absolutely. Yeah, a great blessing, a great gift every day that I have.
And so tell me what you do and how you do it.
Sure. One of the greatest joys is being able to enjoy going to work. And it's really not work. It's like a ministry in itself. Getting the opportunity every day to work with those struggling with addiction and mental health problems that come from the use of substances, whether it be alcohol and drugs, methamphetamines, pills. There's such a multiple number of drugs today, and fentanyl now is so dangerous and killing so many people. We're seeing more of those come into our treatment facility. So I've been blessed, and that posting was something that was personal. It was something that was from my heart, and after losing somebody who had come through our program and had struggled with sustaining their sobriety and died at a young age at 24, and just could not make the decision. And the toughest part of all of this, knowing it personally, being in recovery myself, was the struggle of surrendering to it and then making the decision to work really hard, because you get to a point where you're so worthless. You feel there's no hope. There's the hopelessness. And the greatest passion comes from working with the families, those who struggle and seeing their sick loved one die and unable to do anything about it. Powerlessness, just like my own family had to do with me over 19 years ago. Right. And so it's I have become somebody who's on a mission to do whatever I can to support the Last Resort Recovery Center, where I work today, and the greatest team, and to treat those who are struggling and desiring life. But it's such a long, hard road.
So desiring life, what a beautiful way to put that. Because it takes time for people to recognize the fact that they weren't desiring life using the substances.
Yeah, they lose the attention to detail of everything that was important in life. Even myself, you get to a point where what's the point of working so hard, because there is such a destruction of one's self-identity, purpose in life, and how to amend and to love those who love you, but the love that you have is for a substance. You lose sight of not only your higher power, the very God of your own understanding, but the importance of family and those that are affected, even including in your marriages.
So already I think we've been here about 3 minutes, and you have opened up all of these envelopes that I want to really reach into, each and every single one of them if we have the opportunity this hour. So you mentioned the hopelessness, the purpose in life, and the reaching back in the particular person that you were talking about, the losing life at the age of 24. I mean, you just think that's probably 1/3 of the expected lifespan.
Right.
And so that's 2/3 of a life. In other words, if you relate it to an iceberg, it's 2/3, the main portion of a life that's gone, that's wasted because of a substance that is both physiological and psychologically demanding.
Correct.
How do we get to that point?
How do we get to that point?
Sure.
I think over the progression, this is a disease. A lot of people will question whether or not it is, but there's a point where, everything's great and fun, and it serves a purpose. It makes me happy, more productive. It makes me even a better in my career, or better as a family man, and feeling good about myself. And for a long time, we're able to live in this time frame of being and feeling that we're in control. But over the course of time, we lose that ability to have.
It was a fake. we were never in control if that's the case.
Right. Yes.
Right.
And the thing is, we always think that we have been in control.
Right.
And then when we spiral and when we lose, including myself, when we lose that ability to make healthy choices, we lose even the desire to know what's right or wrong. We don't care. But yet, when we have those bouts of clarity, we do care. And our mind changes, and our mind and how we see ourselves in this world and amongst those around us. Usually the people around us, we're either alone or we're around people who are going to support our negative behavior.
So you mentioned, in essence, when it all comes down to it, from what I've seen, in essence, that is that one word, that aloneness, whether somebody is with, completely isolated all by themselves, or whether they are with 1,000 people at one time. It's that aloneness in their lives and how they feel about themselves. That's what gives themselves over to an addiction of this sort.
It creates more of the problem of that problem, of the isolation,
right,
and not wanting to be seen, because there is the shame that comes with it as well.
Sure.
I didn't want anybody to see me, just like, and so we get to a critical point, and it's desperation, but loss of direction.
So I had a friend when I got out of college, and we were working and what have you, and he was doing certain things, and in many ways I was very naive. And so coming back, and then because I grew up on a farm, and so you get exposed to things little by little. And coming back from college, and he told me, he said, "Well, Riley, you don't understand." He said, "The world gets high. Maybe you're not doing it at this present time or what have you, but the world gets high. The world finds a way," and he was talking about each individual person finds a way to deal with the effects of this world and really, bring it to a point where they feel it, like you said, that they feel like they're in control. And so what you mentioned earlier was kind of fascinating when you said, it makes me better at work. And so you were talking about a particular drug's effects, whether it be cocaine or whether it be the downer or whatever. That particular drug had that effect that person was seeking at that point in their life, right?
Yeah, I never thought that the cocaine would be my drug of choice, but it was, and it matched for me the ability to, in my mind, lose weight because I wouldn't eat. I felt better. I had the energy. But marijuana, no, it would make me fall asleep in 5 minutes. And then if I was coming out of that marijuana high, I would be hungry and I would eat a lot of food. Right. So of course that would then affect my mental status as far as how I saw myself in a mirror.
So the drugs become tailor-made, so that the person reaches out for the thing or they become hooked on that thing that feeds their particular want, desire, need at that point in their life.
It can, and at the same time, it could be just the one drug that gets you to a point of intoxication that it numbs everything else that might be going on in your life that is traumatic, from trauma growing up, whether it be from the job that they may carry, like an EMT, or somebody who is in a stressful position and needs something to keep them going. And alcohol, just to make their inhibitions go down, so they're more social, whether it be at home and around groups of people. And maybe when they started out going to the bar to ask the girl to dance, or even for a female to ask a gentleman to dance. I mean, those who were shy.
Right.
So that substance becomes the one thing that you can count on. It becomes your best friend. It becomes your lover. It becomes the higher power. I refer to it as it becomes the one thing that I sold my soul to give me everything that I wanted, to give me pleasure. Right. But in the end, no.
In the end, it sucks it away. It takes it away.
Absolutely.
It's an illusion.
Yeah.
It's ethereal. It's something that, in essence, by the time you realize that you're in the grip of that substance, those negative behaviors and the negative impulses of your own mind, then all of a sudden now you're in deep water, and you forgot you didn't even know how to swim.
Right. You don't know how to climb up. I always refer to it as like the brick wall of a well. Mm-hmm. and it's slimy and it's dirty and it's dark and you can't climb it, and it's just one stacked upon another of the wall that you're building, and you can't get out of it. And it usually takes some kind of event or situation to break the cycle. And for me, I had mine. And I'd love to share some of that, as far as
we're definitely going to get there.
Yeah.
All right. So in essence, I was trying to figure out, how best to describe what it is that you do. And so I had to start out with, in essence, you're dealing with the most destructive terrestrial force that's known to man, and that's human nature.
Right.
So here we've got a situation where people, for whatever reason, in the greatest country in the history of the world, right?
Right.
And some of the most affluent people that have ever lived in history, and yet we find ourselves in this populous nation. We find ourselves unhappy with where we are, or what we have to deal with, what we have to live with, and the fact that they talk about the American dream. How come it hasn't gravitated to my, when I'm sleeping, I'm not seeing the American dream. And then all of a sudden, it's like there's this thing, whatever it is, this substance that now becomes the crutch. Mm. And so human nature grabs that crutch. And that's what I've found, is that a lot of times it's when people reach a low point in their lives, they grab for the habit, whether it's cigarettes or snuff and then food, right? And many times, right? Mm-hmm. And alcohol. There was a particular gentleman in my life that I know that I was discussing it with, and he said, Riley, don't worry about it. He said, I only drink by myself. And I said, well, that's probably the main point that I'm trying to bring out at this point, is that when you it's no longer a social thing. When now all of a sudden you are in essence self-medicating. Now we've got a problem, and now it's something that you need to deal with.
Everybody strives in the American dream. If we were going to look at human nature and how we strive that American dream, to be happy, to have excellence, to have, to produce, to live and have the nice house. If I was looking at having the nice house, having the white picket fence, and having the family, having the husband and the children. You have that dream because as you're growing up, you see it on TV, you see it on the news, you see it in the magazines. You strive to look perfect, you strive to be perfect, you strive to have that fame in the sense of just being happy and joyous and have nothing to want. Would that be the perfect dream? But one's own identity, how one sees themselves, starts off such a long time ago, right, when we were little. Right. And in human nature, from the family of origin, from the environment and what we're growing in, and the friends and how we were treated by the teacher in school, and were we a teacher's pet, or were we favored, or did we strive to have attention, or did we not know how to get attention? Did we feel cast out, ostracized, or did we feel like we were part of a clique or a group? I say that in seeing then how I see myself fit in my role in my family, in my role or their role in their family, in community, in church, if that's something that they participate in, right, or just in their own meditation or however they live their life, if it's one of a spiritual nature. How one's ideals are developed have come to a point. Using the substances was usually just part of the initial experience. It's usually alcohol and marijuana that we all try.
Right. The gateway, they refer to marijuana as the gateway drug, and obviously alcohol is socially acceptable.
Yeah,
right?
And so until all these years and being where I'm at 56 years of age, alcohol was nothing. We didn't have car seats in the car. I mean, alcohol was something that was you could get even today in a local store. Right. But now you bring in all these other drugs, now the plethora of drugs and pills, and now my generation, as we grow older, now you got medical complications, then you have injuries, now there's painkillers, and we want pain to go away, we want to be happy. And sometimes
I didn't bring my pain scale. I have one. I've been meaning to cover that pain scale, because in essence, that's part of the problem, is that, you know, they look at that pain scale in the hospital from 0 to 10, and it's like, well, where are you at on the scale? And we've become such we understand that there are pharmaceuticals that can take the pain away, and then that becomes the answer. When in fact, in many cases, the doctors are over-prescribing these things. That's how the kids are getting a hold of them in many times in the first place. And then all of a sudden they're there, and that person, whether it be a housewife or somebody that's home, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know what? I'm not feeling good today. Maybe I just reach out and I grab one of those. And that's going to be the answer today. But when you talk about the bath salts and some of these synthetic drugs that they put together nowadays, they say, no, it's beyond bad.
Yeah.
It's beyond bad. It's mankind creating the ultimate mankind destroyer, because they say with the bath salts, some of those synthetics, that they are addictive at the first use.
They do say that,
yeah.
And there's plenty of drugs that we wouldn't think that would be addictive upon the first use. The first line of cocaine that I snorted, I was addicted right then and there. I don't think we ever even had the intention to want to be addicted.
Sure.
At least I'd like to think that that's a common.
You can go
thing.
into it saying, I'm about to.
Right. I mean, there was not the point in any of our lives, in those that I work with and those that have the pleasure to treat, that I don't think that we ever have planned that this is where we wanted to be at this stage of our life. Right. It is what it is, but how do we get well? Because we've been using for over a long period of time, and in that progression, then everything else gets out of groove.
Right.
And being able to survive, you lose that hope.
Right.
And yet you have hope, but it requires so much dedication and work and understanding and knowing how to facilitate that direction with the help of like the team that I work with at the facility, like I work at the Last Resort Recovery Center.
Up in Bastrop is what you're saying,
Yes,
right?
it's just outside of Bastrop. It's in Smithville, and it's so great because we have such a great team, but we've brought in equine therapy. We've brought in horses. We have a multiple ways of engaging a clinical experience, but an experience as one that gets them back into finding some sense of calm and peace and letting go. Right. With that help that
whatever they had, whatever they're holding on to, that baggage got to be jettisoned.
And it's very heartbreaking because I see the baggage is getting heavier. And then the families are carrying such weight, and there's that desperation. Yeah, the desperation.
Mm-hmm. So what you were saying. So in essence, there's this frustration that I'm not where I wanted to be. I'm not where everybody else is. I'm not what social media says that I should be, because look at Ariana or whoever it is. They have so much more than I. And then all of a sudden, then you take on the substance, and in essence, it's like you've been moving forward, and now you're taking 100 steps back. Right. Because if you allow yourself to become addicted in that sense, then what I always tell people is that it took you 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, whatever it was, it took you to get into this situation, whether it's economics, whatever it is, in debt, it's going to take you that much time to get out.
That's typically, as long as it's taken, and it's still, I'm still working. I mean, 19 years. But there were so many years that I lived in my addiction. Yeah. And with that came all the negative consequences. And so I consider those fellow addicts and alcoholics that I have the opportunity and blessed to treat and work with, as well as the team to work with me in working together, that what a blessing that is, because it takes so long. But yet, as addicts and alcoholics have a tendency could be impatient. We want a quick fix. We want it now. We don't want we want things to happen quickly. And this is a slow process, but it's a humbling process. It's humbling, and it requires a lot of attention and a desire to want it that bad.
Right. So again, you keep raising up these awesome issues. So it's not just a type A personality, though, because type B and whatever other types there are, they become addicted as well. It's whatever they're trying to hide from. In other words, the type A will reach out and say, what do I need? Is it more cocaine, or is it faster, better? Or the type B, where you've got, they're not as assertive, and they're more reticent, and now all of a sudden it's something to keep them, placated. In other words, and so it affects both different types of personalities.
It affects. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, whatever religion you have or don't have. It affects all personalities. It affects every type of person, in the sense of how they were raised, whether they were raised in a sober environment or of an environment where there was substance abuse or addiction or mental health or grief and loss or mental health. I mean, those all can contribute to factors of how that affects one's development and growing through and growing up, and in their life experiences. All can play a part into that self-identity. Sure. And then what you may hone in on that might become that drug that you never intended to ever have.
It's much more likely to become, somebody that abuses substances if you come from that type of a family, right?
Say that one more time.
Well, in other words, if somebody, if their parents smoke marijuana or do drugs or whatever, it's much more likely for them to carry on that type of a lifestyle.
Not necessarily all the time.
Really?
No. I mean, it happens, yes, of course. But I can think of genetic predisposition or environmental, and seeing what happens if you were growing up and you had that experience and exposure. Some I would like to think would grow up and say, that's something I want to do. They have other dreams, or maybe they do. You see that? Yes, you do see that carry on.
So we are talking about one of the most fantastic and unbelievable subjects that can be approached from a human standpoint. One of the most destructive situations that affects a person's life, and then the many lives of their families and their co-workers and what have you. And one of the greatest possibilities for reclamation of a human as well, to be reclaimed. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on in the second half of the show. And so I'm just so grateful that you're with me and with us, with Cindy Simmonds. And so stay tuned for the second half.